project that the museum's doing is part of a national project. It's many different museums working across Great Britain, and we're focusing on the lesser known campaigns of the First World War.
Beeford Arts have been involved by providing the project with access to the Beeford Old Archive, which is a collection of around 7,000 photographs dating from 1890 through to the 1950s. We have a lovely old archive that date from particularly around the First World War, so very relevant for this project to give a bit more of a kind of social history and a bit more domestic context to the project.
When we started the project with the museum, we wanted to focus on the Devonshire Regiment's time in Palestine, and just going through some of the diaries that we have in the collections in the regimental collection, we realised there was quite an important avenue to go down, where we focused on the religious backgrounds of these young men coming from North Devon villages and how they wrote and how they experienced the Holy Lands. And so we really want to focus on that in this project.
I've been looking at two diaries, very different. Their way of writing seems, I suppose, depends on the education and background that they're bringing to it. They take 5 days leave from the front and they go sightseeing through the Holy Land and Crocker describes that with huge passion and interest, almost scholarly learning at times. But then he goes on what he calls picket duty, which basically means the men are acting as military police. But he describes one night when his duty was so awful on this picket duty that he couldn't even write about it. And yet he can write about a close friend being shot through the head and dying immediately. He writes about his horse with great feeling, old Ginger. It just varies so much, really.
Adam got in touch with me to find out about what we had any information on the men who had been involved with the project that he is actually doing. And we have been able to help him with some things. He came out and talked to our history group, and that was very, very interesting. Our Christian faith meant a tremendous lot to them. It must have been quite a challenge and quite an uncomfortable situation to be in Jerusalem and seeing what was happening there, and having been used to the reading of Jerusalem in the Bible and revered the place. So yeah, quite a challenge to them, I would think.
We're particularly focusing on a battle called the Battle of El Fuka, and this was a major battle on the 3rd of December in 1917. And although it was predominantly a defeat for the regiment, or they had 300 casualties, it actually weakened the Turkish forces, and then that led to General Allenby being able to capture Jerusalem a few days later. So we're capturing as much information as we can about the day of the battle, about who fought there, who died that day, who survived that day, letters home, also souvenirs that were sent back, and bringing that together in the project. But also we're then going on to work with the Plough Art Centre with their youth theatre group, and they're going to take this information, especially focusing on their religious background and what they were thinking, and from the diaries that we have in the collection, what the soldiers were recording, and creating a performance focusing on that material. We feel the project is important for young people to be involved, because it informs them, especially with the First World War. It was known as the Great War, or the War to End All Wars, and obviously within a few months they realised it wasn't going to be over by Christmas, and we really wanted to work with the Plough Art Centre because it gives a background and local knowledge to the children where their sort of areas were at 100 years ago, and how these young men would have felt going to war. Right, good evening everybody. My name's Adam Murray. I'm the Learning and Access Officer from the Museum Barnstable, North Devon, and we're working with you on the project. So today I brought in some items to do with what we're basing the performance on, and some of these are 100 years old. And also the diaries that you're using from Horace Crocker, we've got some of his items as well, because we hold his items in the museum on loan from his family, who very kindly loaned them. But also we hold the yeomanry collection, so basically that's the regiment and the yeomanry, the cavalry, that you've been basing your performance on as well. So we're going to handle some of the objects now. So everybody's got their gloves on, yes?
Yeah.
Great, okay. And here's his, that's his identification, his regiment number. So he's inked it on the side to make sure nobody steals it as well. So it's his Bible. Okay?
What happened to Horace after the war? When did he die?
I can't remember the exact date, but Crocker comes back and is very, very happy and has a lovely family life and starts up on the farm again, and he lives to quite an old age. And he has at least 3 children, I think.
Oh, I thought he died.
No, he survives. He comes back. That's why we got the diaries. He brings the diaries back home with him as well.
When you are in Palestine,
Yeah.
and are you ever like where war is going on?
I was well, yeah, you're always close to it in the sense that there are soldiers. I'll show you some pictures of soldiers just at a checkpoint in a minute. And sometimes people aren't allowed through the checkpoints. Children going to school. Checkpoint 56 in Hebron, for example, is one place where children have to go through every day to get to their school at Cordoba school. Now, over the years, at certain days, they've just not been allowed through. And there's a famous, I haven't got them with me, I was looking for them, there's a famous set of photographs of children not being allowed through, soldiers pointing their guns at them, literally, and their teachers, and with their fingers on the trigger, and the children not being allowed through and getting anxious, well, very anxious. And in the end, the teacher said, we'll have the lesson here. So it's known as the checkpoint lesson. They had their school lesson at the checkpoint because they weren't allowed through. While we were there, I was sitting having my tea with my friends Arella and Danny, and the siren went off. It was like in films when you hear that sort of siren. And I thought to myself, what's going on? It must be a practice. So I said to Danny, my friend's husband, what's going on? And he, is it a practice? He said, no, we're being bombed. It might take a little bit. Here we are. Hello! Hello! Can you hear me?
Hey!
Hello, they know me.
What do you do at the checkpoints?
At checkpoints, usually we need to take off everything that has metal in it, put it away, so belts, rings, bracelets, anything that has metal in it. Then usually kids get humiliated of the way the Israeli soldiers check them.
What was your life like in your younger years?
So personally, I wasn't really here in my younger years. I've been in Palestine for only 2 years, but I was 6 years old when I went from Palestine to America. So for me, I haven't really experienced Palestine much. Well, I've experienced it because I lived all my life here. I've seen outside world.
Orange!
No, that doesn't matter.
Amber.
As long as I can speak.
Okay, so I just want to say about the marching, that was very good, and didn't it feel horrible just to hear all those footsteps marching at the same time? How did it feel? Felt like an invasion was coming. Yeah, like an invasion, okay?
Holy Lands. This performance is to commemorate the anniversary of the soldiers who fought in the First World War. As local children from North Devon, we especially remember the soldiers from the Devon Yeomanry Battalion of the Devonshire Regiment, who grew up here just like us. The Battle of El Foka took place in Palestine on the 3rd of December 1917. Although the regiment was defeated that day, suffering nearly 300 casualties within 24 hours, the battle helped capture Jerusalem. 1914, the countries of Europe were divided into two large alliances. The Allies included the British Empire, France, Belgium, Russia, and later the USA. The Central Powers included Germany, Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was heir to the Austria-Hungary throne, was assassinated, Germany invaded Belgium, and all of Europe was drawn into war. Even the local soldiers from North Devon, including Langtry, Meashaw, and Black Torrington. At the start of the war, the involvement for men was voluntary, but over time, the men had to go and serve their duty for king and country. Many men found it extremely difficult, as they'd been brought up in mainly farming families and were not prepared for the war.
Mother would not approve of this. I know my Lord will protect me, even in the toughest of times.
I don't get it. How do you even use a gun? I'm not ready for this. I can't be a soldier.
Going to Palestine, walking maybe even exactly where Jesus once walked.
This will be a thrashing experience, but I will miss my home. Don't think I can hold my gun. My hands are shaking. Lord, save our souls.
Father will protect me through the toughest of times.
I so miss my mum. Right, well, better get to work.
Religion meant a lot to the Royal Devon Yeomanry soldiers, who attended low church chapels within their villages to celebrate their faith.
Please, Lord, guide me through this war. Amen. Dear God, please make the army people safe. Amen. Dear God, please keep my family safe. Amen.
I went to a Holy Communion at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. It was held on a roadway by our camp. We heard a shell coming.
The shell exploded about and he was hit and had 2 cuts in the ribs and 1 in the rear of the shoulder. He noted he didn't know if it was part of the casing of the shell, or perhaps it was the stones that had lifted in bursting.
If we hadn't all of ducked behind that rock there, we surely should have been at least hurt or killed, like many others have. Thank you, my lord. Wool.
Ah, yes, yes.
Don't
Hello.
move, don't move, don't move.
Why not?
There's a snake by your leg.
A snake?
Look, don't move, it's a big one, okay?
Get it off me! I don't like snakes! Get it off! Get it off me!
Wool thought it was a rat. That would be a rather large rat. Good job they managed to save themselves.
Once again, thank you, my lord.
Even though these simple soldiers from the shires of Devon were in the midst of war, it didn't stop them from exploring the local Holy Lands.
Horace?
Hello there.
Afternoon off.
I know. Where is that?
Yeah. Sergeant O'Keefe and I went to see the pyramids at Giza this afternoon.
The work it must have taken to build something like that.
Well, it must have taken a lot of workers. Just look at those bricks. How did they get them up there?
Who would have thought that in a time of such turmoil, they could appreciate one of the 7 wonders of the world? Horace also noted on this day they also visited the local museum and citadel, which was very nice indeed. In the museum, they saw what was supposed to be the king of Egypt in the time of the children of Israel. Dwelling down there, who put such tasks on them, and would not let them go away with Moses until God plagued the Egyptians to such an extent.
Come with me. We are being punished!
My, the Lord is powerful.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
Wow, I can't believe I'm actually in Palestine. I'm actually walking where Jesus has walked. I'm shocked and amazed to be in Palestine.
It's amazing being in the Holy Lands.
The modern village of El Foka is situated 10 miles northwest of Jerusalem on a hill near wells and water. The village was strongly defended by Turkish forces, and on the morning of the battle, the soldiers had to fight hand to hand up towards the village walls. The 16th Battalion fought through the night and finally captured the village and 160 prisoners by 3 a.m. The village was surrounded by other hills, including one behind, which was supposed to be guarded by the 14th Black Watch. The Black Watch were a Scottish battalion, and unfortunately had been given bad maps, which led to the wrong hill 3 miles away. When the sun rose on the 3rd of December 1917, the 6th Battalion realised the Turkish soldiers had encircled them and there was no escape. At 6 a.m, the Turkish started firing shells at the village before they began their attack. The soldiers fought face to face with the Turkish for hours without rest until midday. Until Colonel Marden telephoned to instruct them to retreat because half their battalion had been killed or injured. The 16th Battalion suffered 286 casualties that day, over half their soldiers. 9 days later, General Allenby arrived at Jerusalem after the Turkish troops surrendered. In February, Sir Chetrode, the 20th Corps commander, presented medals to the 16th Battalion and remarked, "The battalion's fight was the biggest engagement of any battalion, and the Turks that day have sustained 1,100 casualties."
I'd like to say something, if I may. He carried his pack on his aching back on many leagues of sand. We all loved the lad with a smile so glad on the hills of the Holy Land. And all one and all will answer the call when there's work they've all got to do. But if you can be glad when things go too bad, and yet he was one of few. 'Twas on Gaza's hill, mid-battle's thrill, a death lurked on every side. When there came a shell from Big Gun's bell, and his luck was out, and he died. He was first to fall at Reaper's call, and we knew him for one of the best. God loved him, the lad who smiled so glad, and took him home to rest. Amen.
Amen.
you.